Hi there, I'm Simone. I'm the head of creative programs at the Barn. And I'm here with filmmaker Huw Wahl. Hi Huw, how are you doing?
Hi. All right.
I think it would be really good for you guys to get to know Huw. So I'm going to start with a really obvious question, Huw. Um, what is this Becoming Earthly film season? What is it and what is it about?
Actually, as you were saying that, I thought that how it came about is really that first we were thinking about screening my film, The Republics, on its own, which will be part of the season, but that really the Becoming Earthly sort of series in the summer helped me think about, well, it kind of contextualized that film in an ecology sort of framework, which I sort of not hadn't really done that, I guess, before, even though there's like lots of the film is ecological sort of directly in some ways, but also like in the way it's made. Then yeah, that then sort of opened up to this film season, I think. So it's helped me. I suppose what I'm trying to say is the film season is also a sort of way of me working through some thoughts about what film and ecology, or what film can do with ecology, how they sort of interlink. Um, and it's really sort of asking people to come with me in that thought space and watch these films in that context, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that really does.
Yeah. So what else was I going to say? Yeah. What was your question? How did it? What?
Well, no, I was going to say that, we have a long history of doing things with doing projects that are art and ecology projects at the Barn. And those projects are very much about co-relationship. So thinking about ecology or environments and obviously personal issues around that, such as climate change, and then thinking about art and how art is located in the work. And that is quite interesting when it comes to film and filmmaking, and the type of film that people usually watch in relation to climate change. And I just wondered, um, how is this film festival sort of the same or different to a kind of like a film festival which is very, you know, climate change documentary orientated or something like
Yeah.
that?
I guess it's different in the sense that I'm kind of more looking at films that it's tricky this, but like more in the kind of way that they deal with materials. That they're kind of ecology driven, maybe in their processes, as in to say that the way that they're made is kind of more like, I want to say like a participation in the world. So quite a lot of them actually come, not all of them, but I sort of probably started with films that come from quite a personal perspective. So stuff like Ben Rivers' Ghost Strata is very kind of like, I think it goes month by month. It's quite a sort of diary-like sort of patchwork kind of, and then the texture builds up through, you're very much watching like through someone's kind of vision, through someone's view. And then of course there's other stuff like the Upstream film, which kind of literally takes a different perspective from the air, kind of in kind of quite low down drone shots up the river. It's the River Dee, isn't it?
Yes.
But I think they're kind of all bound together in a way that they're not directly about ecology, as in they're not advocacy films in the formal sense, but they still advocate in ecological ways. But I think it is that thing about it's the process of the making of it. I'm sort of still thinking about this at the moment, so it's again, it's like still forming, but it's something about kind of the way that they deal with material and the kind of day-to-day materials that we live with, and the way that they possibly I think we've spoken about that idea of like resensitizing us to the world, which I think often documentary, not all documentary, and it's like, I don't want to sort of bundle things together, but sometimes it treats things as fact and sort of truth, when I think that that's a much more muddy water than you know, than we'd like to think. So yeah.
I think that's really interesting, some of the stuff you've said there, and actually the thing about sort of living day to day and making films day to day, because you know, there's the film industry, you know, is an industry which probably kind of uses a lot of energy is one way of putting it. And I was thinking about your film The Republics that you're going to show, and I know sometimes filmmakers don't like talking about their films, but I'm going to ask anyway. But when I was viewing that work, it felt very hands-on with you and the camera and the material and being very up close, and it was for me it felt like a very ecological way of making, because it was quite simple,
Yeah.
And quite slow, in terms of, there was lots of observation going on. And is that a quality in some of the other films we're going to see? Is this what you're capturing, or do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I think in some of them it is. I think that to pick up on the first point, that yeah, certainly making a film when it's just you. I mean, I really am drawn to films that are made by filmmakers, and when I say filmmakers, I mean the sense of the word that it originally came about, I think, in sort of cinema verite, where the filmmaker held the camera, did the editing, did the shooting, did the interviewing, you know, possibly didn't do the sound, wasn't holding the boom, but in the sense that the filmmaker kind of is making lots of different parts of the film. I think that historically is a lot more ecological, because you're not bringing in huge crews and shipping, you know, huge amount of kit to different places and stuff. So there is that. But then I suppose the other point about observation is interesting, because yeah, there probably are films that I mean, the most obvious observational film is the Athene one, by Eva Stefani, which is, I think, from 1995. Yeah, which is set in a train station in Greece, I believe. And I think I chose that because, yeah, again, it's not obviously ecological in the sense that we think about ecological sort of climate change film, but it's bringing that very kind of human relational perspective into the world as well. I know it's already there, obviously, but but there's films that are obviously about the Anthropocene and all that kind of stuff, and then there's there's these other kind of observational films. So yeah, and I wouldn't call it. I know you haven't said it, but I wouldn't call it slow cinema in a way. I'd call it that sort of films that give space for us to kind of I mean, pretty simply, like, give us space to think about these things. And I think a lot of film doesn't really give us that space. And I know that myself in terms of editing. You know, you are often pushed to edit something that my anxiety when I'm making film is that the audience is always interested, engaged. But I think there's films like Le Quattro Volte, the four times, I think is the translation, that kind of goes through these like four different realms based on, apparently Pythagoras claimed he lived four different lives. Apparently, yeah, so it's like the human realm, the animal realm, the plant realm, and the mineral realm, and it kind of has these four sections. It's quite a long film and it's got tons of space in it, but it's also like incredibly captivating. You know, watching a goat standing on a table for 5 minutes or something. But there's something about sort of just coming into that sort of, again, I want to say meditative space, but I don't really mean it's like a meditation, but that kind of space where you are actually really engaged in stuff, but it's not pummeling you with different scenes all the time. Although some of the films are much more like, I'm trying to think, The Isle of Flowers is much more kind of, I think it's inspired by Kurt Vonnegut, so it's got these kind of very, very quick, rapid edits and spoken word and stuff. But I think they all give that space that sort of opens out and brings questions with it.
I think the good thing about being able to do this at your own pace at home over a period of 2 weeks, you know, you can dip in and see how you feel and how you go with things, and there's obviously going to be opportunities for discussion as well if we have the in conversation events that are yet to be confirmed at this stage, but we're really excited to host it. We feel it's a really new venture for us at the barn. We do show quite a lot of film at the barn, but we're not a film organisation, so to speak. We really come in from the sort of arts and ecology angle, but we do think film is a really interesting medium in which to consider these themes, and also just to do together, to think about how we go about life and our relationship to the life web, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's vital, isn't it, that we look at our place in the world and what's happening to it. And I think some of what we're doing to the world. And I think although these films, like I've said before, aren't maybe direct campaign films, I think they still have just the same amount of urgency, or they bring us to the same urgency that we need to have about what's, you know, what is taking place in, like, ecologically.
yeah, and I think your example going back to Athene was a really good one, because you were talking about, oh, I just want the human to human relationship. I know we know about human relationships, and you're like, actually, I think there was something in that. I think you were trying to get to, which came up a lot in Becoming Earthly, which was about care and care for each other as humans, and care not being just something that is hierarchical from you know, that flows downwards. It flows out to everyone into a community, but also then into the life web as well.
Yeah.
And I think really getting up close to those relationships are really key. And I think that is something I'm quite proud of at the barn, because I think we're quite good at nurturing some of those relationships. Probably in other places we could do with a bit of work, but I think that's something we're really proud of. And our volunteers and our audience are all very, very welcome. This is a very welcome space for them. We want them to, yes, be inspired, yes, be challenged, but we just want them to feel comfortable entering into this space and exploring this with us. So I'm really glad that you've decided to share your thinking and your filmmaking and your curatorial vision with our organisation. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Huw.
Fantastic, thanks.